Hi Kenyans, my name is Lucia Ayiela. I'm a digital activist, and today I will be sharing my experiences as a young Kenyan on the reality check. A digital activist is basically an activist who uses social media as the main channel of activism. And it's something that's very prevalent in my generation. We have realized how much power we have in social media. So if we can use social media to troll other people and have online wars, why not use it for a good cause? So basically, I've seen how much young people unnecessarily suffer, and that is one thing I'd really like to deal with. I know it's not possible to totally and completely eliminate it, but improvements can be made. And in 2019, there was a time when JKUAT students were protesting because of insecurity at their campus. And there was this boy who was brutalized by security officers. And it upset me a lot because these are people who take an oath to serve and protect you. The fact that you've taken an oath to serve and protect me, and yet you're the one who's brutalizing me because I have told you I don't have enough security, is more than irony. It's a cocktail of irony and sarcasm and everything that's just wrong. I started by doing a lot of reading on policies of youth empowerment and capacity building a lot. So on paper we have all the right laws, but then when you go to look at how these laws and policies are implemented, it's near zero implementation. And nobody ever comes back to do monitoring and evaluation so that they can improve on the policies and programs. Nobody actually consults the young people to find out if these programs are working for them the way they have been intended to work for them. And so that's where my curiosity started. And when you're curious about something, you learn a lot of things along the way. So I kept finding out, like, oh, we have this program. And then you try to work with it and you find, like, no, it's not going to work, They tell you there's the youth, the YAGPO, whereby we're supposed to get 30% of all procurement opportunities. Dear Lord, oh my God, the processes of trying to get it will kill you first and foremost, just the paperwork. And it's good that they're giving us these affirmative action programs, but then it doesn't make sense for me to give you money if I don't know whether you have the capacity to handle the money that I have given you. So a lot of the youth policies and programs that are in the country are not really solution oriented. They are formatted in a manner that's likely to look like tokenism. So it really doesn't solve any problem at all. And that is what really angered me, because if we make up 75% of the population, laws are supposed to be favoring us because we are the majority. But then we are a majority that's treated like a minority, and it's not cool. And I come from a generation that was taught to disrupt. So they put up things and don't train the youth. But then also the youth that are supposed to benefit from these affirmative actions, programs and policies are not aware that they exist. Have you ever seen an advertisement on TV advertising YAGPO? Have you ever seen one advertising, even CDF, have you ever seen it? Even just the basic bursary that school-going children from underprivileged families are afforded. It's never advertised. So how can we know what we are not informed about? There's a culture of hoarding information. The basic things that will help you, there's no information about that out there. But you'll find information about BBI. You'll find information about MPs fighting each other. You'll find information about so-and-so calling the other person a witch, and it's things that don't help us are the kind of information that we have. Yeah, so they'll advertise betting, they'll advertise everything that's beneficial to them, but the information that helps young people like me is never advertised. They don't have a budget for that. All of these agencies have websites, but then the contact information that's there just never works. You send them an email, nobody ever gets back to you. It basically beats the purpose of having a website, because that's supposed to be a point of information, and it just doesn't work like that. So having to go to an office, first and foremost, you need to ask yourself, where are the Youth Enterprise and Development Fund offices? They are somewhere in community or Upper Hill, you know. How is a young person from Dandora or Korogocho supposed to get to those offices? Where do they get the fare to get from home to Upper Hill? You know, it's the basic struggle, because this is a person who basically didn't have a meal to put on the table. You don't expect them to travel all the way. So the offices are out of touch with us, the people who need it. Because if Youth Enterprise Development Fund is supposed to benefit me, why don't they have a branch at every chief's camp? You know, you don't have to come up with a whole infrastructure. You know, we have MCAs. Why isn't that based in those ward offices? You know, somewhere where every person who needs that service can access it. It's akin to kupea kibogoyo githeri. You know, basically umemnyima food. Our government has focused on all the wrong things. Like, they've lost the priorities, you know. If I was president today and my people were dying of hunger, I think I would prioritize giving my people food, you know. If healthcare was not working, I would prioritize making sure that healthcare works. I would prioritize making sure that the education system works, you know, because then I'm producing healthy, well-fed citizens who are educated, and that's a highly skilled labor force, which is good for the economy in return. But then our government wants to expand the executive. And what really kills me about this whole BBI thing is the fact that the president said his government was going to take on austerity measures. And here he wants to blot the executive. He wants to blot the parliament. You know, we can already feel the pinch of taxation right now, because fuel prices have gone up by, I think, around 7 to 8 shillings. You know, that means everything is gonna go up by, I think, 8 to 16 shillings. And you know, our salaries are still the same. We still have a curfew in place, yet the taxes have gone. The cost of living has skyrocketed. It makes it impossible for us. But when you ask yourself where this money is going to, just try to remember the MCAs who've been promised car grants. We are paying for those car grants through fuel, through bread, through high cost of electricity, basically through everything. We are paying for that, and that is tokenism. If the BBI was so good, if it was so people-centered, why do we have to bribe MCAs with cars? If we are bribing MCAs so that the BBI can pass, hey, oh yeah, pia mimi nataka bribe. It's not like I don't have needs. I also need a car. You know, it's hectic using public transport in this city, you know. I wanted to register a non-profit that's going to focus on civic education, because I believe that information is power, and if young people have the right information, then they can make informed decisions that are going to be helpful for their lives, basically. So in order to be able to carry out a project for civic education, I have to register a non-profit organization. And I consulted, and I was told that registering a company limited by guarantee serves the purpose of running a non-profit organization. So I do my research, you know, like you have to know whatever it is, you ask around, because that information is just not something that's on the website. You know, even in the registration process, they really don't guide you on a step-to-step. Like, you just get to a place and it's like, oh, successful, you've completed your process, like what next? Nobody tells you anything. So I did my research, and I find out that The cost is about 3,000 bob, which I think, fair enough, you know? Like, hata kama ni kuhustle, I can get 3K. It's not beyond me. And I look for that money, you know, and I register and I go through the process. I finish, I submit my application, which was on a Friday. So on Monday morning, I receive a text. And at that point, I'm like, yay, government processes now work. And I see it's like, oh, you need to make a correction. To which I think, not so bad, it's just one correction. And I changed, which was a problem with the name, to which of up to date I really don't understand why they had a problem with the name, considering there's an ungovernmental institute called Katiba Institute. And yet they told me that I cannot use the word Katiba because it's government affiliated. Didn't make sense to me. But then I'm like, okay, just so that the process can keep moving, let me change it. I changed the name. After I resubmitted the corrections, I'm told the process cannot be reviewed because I have a pending bill. And I'm thinking, maybe they penalize people for editing their applications after submitting the first time. So I'm thinking, even if it's a penalty, it's not going to go beyond 500. I'm thinking 150, 300. And then I look at the bill and it's 7,000 and my heart just drops. Because first and foremost, where am I supposed to get that 7,000 from? You know, I'm actually trying to do something meaningful with my life, and it's just impossible. So I call, and as usual, nobody picks. But then, like, I just keep calling, and I keep calling, and I keep calling. Eventually, someone picks the phone. And it's a nice lady, so I talk to her, and I explain to her the situation, and she's like, you know what? I work at the registrar's office, but then we did not know there was going to be a change in pricing. And I'm thinking, wait, eCitizen is contracted by government. eCitizen hikes prices without letting government know. How? And she's like, oh, you know, it's people who were calling us the other day complaining about the same thing that alerted us to the problem. And so I was floored at that point, and I'm thinking, so who can I talk to who can assist me, you know? Because I really, really need this. And she's like, I really don't know. It's beyond me. It's above my pay grade. And I was so pissed. It was actually a moment of total helplessness. You know, like, it was just the end of it. It's been a 5-year journey, you know, and I thought, like, oh yes, we are here finally. And then something just comes and blocks the process. And I was angry. It was just a bad feeling. And I said, the only way we get public services to work nowadays is through social media. So I just did a video and I posted it on Twitter. Tu ako unemployed, anaishi na mzazi wake mwenye ako retired, hajiwezi. Anadaiwa 7,000 ndo aregister biashara kwa hii country after serikali imekuambia go and employ yourself. Ido nafaa kutoa wapi? Kila siku na mshwanga na text ya kudefault loan ya KCB M-Pesa. Like siekangi alarm yangu ni text message za kudaiwa pesa. Serikali inaniambia niende nijiandike, alafu ina make it impossible kujiandika. Imekataa kutupea job, imekataa create a conducive environment for private sector to thrive, ndio private sector create employment. And I didn't expect a lot of people to relate to that video as much as they did, and people have harrowing stories. It's very sad out here because a lot of people have tried these government processes and it just does not work. And if you manage to register that company, then KRA is going to kill you with taxes, or Kanjo, or the cops, or KEBS, or whatever agency it is. And a friend of mine was telling me they wanted to start a barber shop. And he went around asking for all the required things. And apparently he needed 7 licenses. 7 for a barber shop. I really don't know what all of them are for, honestly. I really don't know. The bureaucracies just kill you, because first if you cannot get the paperwork correct, then they'll just keep sending you back and keep sending you back, and it gets exhausting. You know, you can only try so many times, but a lot of young people just end up giving up totally, completely on the process, because it's either expensive or it's just too bureaucratic. There's just like way too many things to fill, and it's a repetitive process. You know, if I give you my ID number, there's somewhere you can go. If you're working for government, I'm 100% sure there's somewhere you can go where you get all my information, and that place is likely to be KRA. So I don't understand why I'd fill a form for KRA, fill another form for NSSF, fill another form for NHIF, fill another form for EACC, fill another form for HELB. You know, it's a million things that are requesting the same information, and you still don't move forward. And it's like, oh, that signature doesn't look like the other one, so go back. That name is not acceptable. Oh, the apostrophe there did not match the apostrophe. It's just, it's very frustrating, and you get to a point where it feels like it's by design. Because when you have a population of young, empowered people, you cannot easily control them and just manufacture consent like they're doing with the BBI process right now. They will challenge you. And our leaders don't want to be challenged. That's why they're making sure that we are just at that place. Because how then do you justify kazi mtaani? Miss Jaonangi na Kenyatta na slasher na wheelbarrow na panga. You know, charity begins at home. Lead by example. Show us. You take your kids to do that first. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Information. I think it's important for us to be bothered about the political structures in this country. I think that's where we go wrong. If we don't have good political leadership, we don't have good lawmakers, we don't have good laws, we don't have good implementation, and that rule of law is never going to be upheld. So we really need to start being bothered with politics. It's not enough to just take an ignorant stand and go like, politics doesn't affect me. It does affect you. It affects the way you sleep. It affects where you sleep. It affects if you sleep at all. It affects every part of our lives. So it's important for us to pay attention to that. Here is what I say to people who think that their vote won't change a thing. Back in 2002, you know, I know most of us were very young, but when you listen to stories of back then, people knew there was a chance that the system would be rigged by KANU. And the one thing they did was all of them aligned to the opposition side. So much so that no matter how much the system was rigged, it still wouldn't win. So your vote counts, because then it might be the one that tips the scale, you know. Kunaweza kuwa na hiyo balance ya 50-50 alafu yako ndio ikuwe +1. So all our votes do count. And that vote is actually your political power. That is your political power, because that enables you, you know, for your voice to be heard. And I really don't think we need to transform anything. The world is changing. 5 years ago, if someone had told you in 2020 kids will be schooling from home, you wouldn't have thought it would have been possible. If someone had told you 2 years ago that right now the vice president of the United States of America would be a black woman, you know, you'd think like, oh no, you're crazy, you know. But things happen. So the world is changing, and one of the things we need to do is to change with the world. We really don't have to do everything old school just because it worked back then. I have a Zambian friend who's an artist, and he planned a protest and advertised it like you would a normal protest. So the government, of course, goes and pours out security agency at the venue, and he changed. Kumbe the whole thing was happening at a different venue, and it was only 20 people on the ground, and the rest of the protest was happening on Facebook Live. So the cops couldn't arrest anyone because we are protesting online. You know, how then do you get onto online spaces and protest? And they were at a moment like this when their constitution was about to be mutilated, and that changed the whole game. So we really don't have to go out there. We just have to stop criticizing each other for doing things different. You know, the way we are seated, if a number 9 was drawn here, to me it will be a 9, and to you it will be a 6. It doesn't mean any of us is wrong. We are all right, it's just different perspectives. Something I grapple with because I find it very, very funny that when you're in a position to change things, you'll come and complain with people who don't have that privilege on a platform that affords them some level of privilege. So I really don't get why our legislators do that. I wish they'd come to Twitter to say, I tried to move this bill in Parliament that was going to help the women, and it has been rejected 5 times. So I'm here to get help from Twitter people. Not to come and lecture us on the same things we as activists lecture them on. So who exactly are they lecturing? Like, are you lecturing yourself? Did you just feel like having a monologue on Twitter? It doesn't make sense to me, honestly. I just find it ridiculous. You know, you're in a position to change something, change it. Stop lamenting. Lamenting is for those of us who are not in those positions. To the people in leadership, Kenyans are not stupid. We understand that you people have been in leadership for like forever, mmezeekea kwa hizo viti, and that's okay. But the generations have changed. You know, the populations have changed. We have a generation that's majorly educated. We have a generation that will ask you questions. So it's not politics as usual. You all better step up your games or else tunawafagia nyinyi wote. To the young people, kindly find spaces that can accommodate you, like kongamano la mageuzi, you know, spaces where your voice can be heard and you can team up with other young people to add strength to your voices and all the little work that we are doing differently in our own small ways, in our own little spaces. It's important for us to now unite it. It's important for us to now unite our struggle and just speak with one voice. Because honestly, the future is ours to lose. There's nothing that's stopping us now. We have the energy, we have the ideas. You know, there are people who went before us and did great things that we can pick up from. So, ni sisi tu by the end tumelalisha. So it's time for us to just wake up from that slumber and go, go, go.